Hi, guys. Welcome back to Sports with Mono and Mono. It's January 27th, 2024. A little kind of mild compared to what it's been in the Northeast. So, hope everyone's getting out and enjoying that weather instead of the sub-zero weather we had with the wind chill last week. So, Eli will be joining us in just a moment. And again, thank you everybody for tuning in. We're a little breakfast show this morning at 9. Um, so we'll be back next week at our usual time, 10 o'clock. But thanks for joining us. And let's just jump right into it. The monologue, of course, as you know, is sponsored by Coriano Trucking of Summer Hill, New York. And we thank them for their continued loyal support of the show. So the monologue this week. And it's about a person. And I find this to be one of the most intriguing people left in the 4 teams left in the NFL, and it's Jared Goff. And Jared Goff was the number one pick in 2016, spent 5 years with the Rams, didn't play much his first year, but put up excellent numbers, took his team to the Super Bowl, and then the big decision was made by Sean McVay that he felt maybe he wasn't the guy that could lead us to a championship, so he makes the trade for Matthew Stafford. And now you find Jared Goff and his Detroit Lions right in the mix here. So I have rarely seen a transformation of a guy who was kind of mediocre to start his career, and then he just really lit it up. He's thrown for over 4,000 yards 4 times, and he's a shy, kind of humble guy, but he's got right in the mix here. And we're going to talk about whether or not he's got enough around him to get to the Super Bowl again with Detroit. But it would be a great story if he did. Like I said, he embraced this Detroit thing instead of sulking and so forth. He took upon himself, and he's developed into quite a leader, and he's a leader of that team. And they're right in the mix. So I just wanted to give kudos to him. And like I said, I don't know whether or not the Detroit Lions are there completely yet, but they got a good foundation going with Dan Campbell and so forth. And Dan Campbell has complete confidence in Jared Goff, and I just hope he performs well and in the playoffs, and we'll see how far they go. It's a big game tomorrow, so we'll jump right into that NFL talk. And
before we get to NFL, I'll just bring up Jared Goff real quick. I think he rose to the occasion this year. He has done everything correct, and the trade I think was absolutely worth it. Detroit, what they've been able to do from start to finish, and being a team where you really was always in a losing season, they have so much potential this year, and that is incredible to see. And kudos to the entire Detroit staff and everybody, because that is off to a fantastic run and a fantastic start. And I can't wait to see what happens. And Jared Goff absolutely deserved his position, and he did everything right so far. And of course, comment where you're on wherever you're watching, Twitter, X, YouTube, or Facebook, for your thoughts on Jared Goff and any comments you have, or send an email to sportswithmonomano@gmail.com.
Yeah, I really, you got to root for a guy like this. He really has like you said, risen to the occasion. It's a great story. So good luck to him today. So Eli, let's jump right into our NFL thing. You and I were 2-2 last week. Let's recap the games. Right, the first game was Houston-Baltimore. Looked like it was going to be competitive in the beginning, and then Baltimore came out and showed their superiority. And so they got to be considered, one of the favorites to get to the Super Bowl. Although we're going to talk about those particular games in a little bit. But
I'm going to bring up real quick for the Ravens-Texans situation. It was tied at halftime, 10-10, but the Texans played sloppy from the moment they started in the first quarter, and that kind of said to me, oh, great, this is not going to be the Texans team we saw throughout this entire season. But aside the loss, the Texans had one heck of a season. What C.J. Stroud has been able to do, as well as with the rookie head coach, I believe that was an incredible run for this Houston Texans team. And this is just the future in the beginning. Obviously, the Ravens were a tough team to play, but remember, the Ravens had a a pretty okay, decent schedule. So this is going to be a big test, especially home against Patrick Mahomes, who clearly can win anywhere, no matter if it's Arrowhead or Buffalo or anywhere, because and that game just widely showed in Buffalo last week with Patrick Mahomes. We'll get to him later. But
Yep.
overall, congrats, great run up ahead for the Ravens.
Yeah, I mean Patrick Mahomes, we'll talk about, but there's no question that Lamar Jackson is absolutely one of the biggest dual threat quarterbacks in the NFL today. But does he have that intangible? Can he lead this team when
That's
it
the issue.
counts?
But
Yeah.
remember, if you look at the standing in the previous history, you got to keep in mind, of course, that the Ravens have never won past either the division round or conference championship to head to the Super Bowl run in a while. So to break those boundaries is going to be
Mhm.
huge. And it's not an easy task versus the Chiefs this weekend. And keep in mind, yesterday was 50 degrees and nice and sunny in Baltimore. For game time tomorrow, it'll be 40 degrees and in the rain. So that is an extra
Mhm.
factor you need to add into it. Of course, Kansas City's dealt with 0-degree weather in the negatives, so they could care less what it is. But for the Baltimore, how are they going to react to it? I know week 18 they had a rainy game versus Pittsburgh, but still, how is that going to factor in the most important game of everybody's lives practically on the field?
Yep. And listen, this doesn't diminish the great year C.J. Stroud had and so forth. They gave it their best, and they got a team on the rise, so that's good for football, good for everybody.
Yeah,
And then of course, we had the Green Bay San Francisco game, and that was kind of in the rain, so you never know how that could impact the outcome. But you got to give Green Bay some credit. They hung in there on the road in the bad weather, and Jordan Love is an up and coming prospect.
he is, but I
So
think that interception thrown at the end of the game with 54 seconds practically left on the clock, that's going to hurt him a little bit because it was a perfect
yeah,
pass, perfect throw, but it just was the wrong decision. Clearly, the mind was not thinking straight enough, and it costed them the game.
yeah.
It is one of those situations where it's like, the Packers, they had such a great season, should have pulled up the upset considering how bad the 49ers were in the beginning and the amount of injuries that took place throughout the game. But unfortunately, those silly mistakes like that interception thrown killed the Packers tremendously. And of course, the 49ers go on. And you look at the
Well,
49ers side
I
of
mean,
things,
that's just what that is, Eli. That's what you call growing pains in the National Football League.
absolutely.
He's gonna learn from that, but he really has taken over Green Bay and hopefully make them forget about Aaron Rodgers. But that was a competitive game as well. And then the other game was Tampa Bay and Detroit, and we talked about Jared Goff, who came up big. It was a competitive game, but just like I told you, I didn't have a lot of confidence in Baker Mayfield. He tends to throw the interception when he shouldn't,
You
and
shouldn't, yeah.
the result really wasn't a surprise to
When you
that
look
one.
at
But
that game, the Buccaneers did play a close game, and let's just be honest with you. Let's be honest, they had a great season, but we're not meant to be in the playoffs because if they only won 9-0 in Week 18 for the versus Carolina Panthers, which should have been a higher scoring game considering you have the playoffs right on the line, it was a little scary, and you knew they were going to be out. But they made it far. And I give them credit. They had to have a good season, of course. But Baker Mayfield had an incredible run that we expected to
yeah,
be and had. So
yeah.
that you got to give them credit. The Lions, huge win. We'll talk about them later, but I think it's going to be a very tough task to ask for versus the 49ers, but it could be done.
Yep, we can. And the final game last week was, and again, this is my pick. I was on Buffalo all year long, and I made the final mistake I'll ever make against betting against Patrick Mahomes. The guy is simply a winner. He just finds a way to win, and everybody had. Well, not everybody, but you and I had Buffalo,
Yeah, we
and
had Buffalo, yeah. Well,
we hope.
I think, as Jim Nance put it, wide right says it all right there for the Buffalo Bills. There, it comes down to those situations. I honestly thought when he was going to make the kick, I'm like, oh great, here we go, overtime is happening. Like this is going to be an epic finish. And then he had wide right, and you're like, what just happened here?
Yeah,
And
and I
I think that,
remember.
and then
Believe
just
me, I remember the original wide right. So this goes back to Scott Norwood in 1980.
yeah.
whatever it was,
Which
91. Right?
yeah, but the Bills had a bad day to begin with. They had a fake punt that was not necessary at their own area, bad play calls, and perfect catches for Stephon Diggs, unable to catch it. So, pretty bad day for Buffalo. And
Well,
Taylor
and
Swift
I'm
was
glad,
there, so they got the win. Kansas City, you got that one right.
yeah, and I'm glad that you brought that up because I have seen, a couple of seasons ago, I thought Stephon Diggs was one of the best receivers in the league, and then something has taken place in Buffalo, and I don't know what it is because he doesn't look like the same player. He doesn't look like he's interested. He made a big drop on a perfect pass from Josh Allen down the field that could have changed the course of the game. So there was a lot of things that the wide right wasn't really, that just would have tied the game, but you still had Patrick Mahomes to beat
Right.
and to beat him in overtime. So that's why you and I were 2-2 on our 4 games
Well, I'm
last
going to go
week.
back to the Stephon Diggs situation real quick. He is the legend number one, especially after that Minneapolis miracle, because what he was able to do there, it was one of a kind and something that I will never forget watching that game and the play call from Joe Buck. He is still, I believe, one of the best wide receivers possibly out there. Obviously, some mistakes do happen, part of human nature. However, I would debate that he is a top-notch wide receiver.
Yeah, I'm going to disagree and respectfully disagree because
Yes.
I think there's something broken there that his enthusiasm or motivation, and he's been dropping a lot more passes. And yes, we can go back but that miracle in the playoffs with the Vikings that's in the rearview mirror. And when you're Buffalo and you put together this team, you have to come up big. That's when the big wide receivers, big play people come up big, and he didn't come up big. And
And
they're on the hook for him for a while though, because they
yes,
signed him to a big contract
yes, they did.
last
And one
year.
other thing that he said, Stephon Diggs said to the media that he is not leaving anytime soon. He is staying here and he's comfortable from where he is at. So that means he's going to be with Buffalo for a while, regardless of who the coach is. Even though I possibly do think that we'll get a coaching change in Buffalo. That's my thinking, considering the past history for Buffalo. But
Yeah.
uh, I think it might be the coach, but we'll see about that because they can
Okay.
definitely go far in the playoffs. But yeah, he'll be staying with Buffalo for a long time, according to what he said to the media.
No, Buffalo's got a good team. They're
They
just
do.
they had
They just can't
injuries.
click.
Yeah, something missing there, and I don't know if it's McDermott or not. I don't see a coaching change happening there.
It could possibly be. I mean, if you look at the previous history for Buffalo, I mean, they lost since 2020, they lost the wild card round, the championship round, the divisional round. You know, the
Yeah,
history just repeats itself.
yeah. So, all right. So listen, that was yesterday, and now this is
It's today.
today. So we got 2 big games tomorrow. Let's. You went first last week. I'll give you my 2 picks here, and like I said, I'm not making another mistake in betting against Patrick Mahomes. I think he just has this intangible that just makes him um, just simply a winner. And I'm not saying, well, you and I talked before the show that I do believe Lamar Jackson is the biggest dual threat quarterback in the league right now, probably going to win the MVP, but he has to get over that hump too. And after last year taking off from the playoffs, there was a big debate whether or not he was really injured or this was all about his contract. But it seems like the team has rallied around him. But I'm gonna take Patrick Mahomes because I think they have. I think the job that Pacheco has done in a running back position has been a big surprise, right? Running back out of Rutgers, but he's played well, and I think they have the tools. You and I did talk, before the show about, yeah, they kind of had, hey, this isn't the same Kansas City Chiefs team, right? And they kind of had a lackluster year, but now this is the playoffs, and big time players show up in big games, and I'm going to take Patrick Mahomes on the road in Baltimore, not because I don't think Lamar Jackson is a good quarterback, but I think because Patrick Mahomes is a better quarterback. That's all. And then the second game, of course, and this is a big one. I've been kind of wrestling with this all week. I'm going to be anxious to hear your pick. So, it's San Francisco, and if you look at it on paper, and Debo Samuel will be playing in the game, so that's a big plus for them. And the whole Detroit story, it's a Cinderella story. I just don't know if they're completely there yet. So this would be a tall task for them on the road. And one thing I do worry about with San Francisco is, we're all baptizing Brock Purdy as the next super quarterback in this league, and I'm not so sure he's there yet. I mean, this is only his second season, and but he's got a lot of tools around him. And Christian McCaffrey is just some player, and I look for George Kittle to have a big game as well. So
Yeah.
I'm going to take San Francisco, but in the back of my head, I'm kind of rooting for Jared Goff, as you know, because it's a great story. But I'm going to take Kansas City and San Francisco. And now, Elijah, you tell us your pick.
Well, I'm just going to share my screen real quick. Of course, this is the Super Bowl 58 colors. It's purple and red. One of the colors is right. And whether it's the red side or the purple side, as you have two red teams and one purple team. So one is guaranteed to be right in the Super Bowl. Okay. So I think the logo is going to be right for the third straight year, according to the share screen logo thing. So great job, NFL, for bringing it again. All right. My picks. Well, Baltimore's in favor by 4 points in this game this weekend. That's 3 p.m. on CBS for the AFC Championship. I don't want to see Patrick Mahomes win again and go to the Super Bowl. I love what the Ravens story has been, and I know probably kids, he's going to have to take it to victory here, but I'm going to go with my heart and what it says, and I'm going to go with the Baltimore Ravens 28-25 in the victory in a close one over Kansas City. Shocking there. And finally, San Francisco favored by 7.5 versus Detroit. I always liked upsets, and I'm going to take the Detroit Lions to beat the San Francisco 49ers 26-24. Why? The 49ers are dealing with some injuries, regardless of the status, if they're back and healthy and ready to go. That's still going to have a factor into the game. And we always seen some chokes from the 49ers in the championship game after having a fantastic run, especially last year with Philadelphia, who, again, was that team that was not really supposed to be at the Super Bowl, but yet still got the spot anyways. Yeah, so I'm going to take the Lions in the upset and the Ravens at home over the Chiefs in the rain. Those are my picks, and yeah.
Okay. And listen, you know my feelings on point spreads and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
I don't believe in it.
It has a factor usually. It always has a factor somehow.
Yeah, I guess, but this is about winning and losing, and that's
I agree.
I don't play a game to say, oh, well, this team, they're 14-point favor, 14-point underdogs, and we consider it a success if you bet them with 14 points and they keep it, under 14. Hey, that's a win for you. But I told you, nobody makes money betting on the NFL, and I just don't like the tie-in with sports gambling and the game. So all right,
just
Eli.
Before we get to the coaching carousel, this is the NFL ratings from last week. The Chiefs-Bills game ended up on top of 50 million views. Second place was Bucks Lions on NBC with 40. But Fox had Packers 49ers at 37.5. ABC and ESPN had Texans Ravens at 31.8 million views. The order of games in which it came was flipped around. And Zach Ertz from the Lions has signed with the Lions, and he'll be potentially starting tomorrow versus the 49ers. So just keep it a lookout from all the insiders wherever you follow that, because that is a potential good way to start for him.
Yeah, and I'll give you this too. A big player coming back for Baltimore that can only help their chances is Mark Andrews.
Absolutely
coming back, right? So
yes,
that's another weapon that Jackson hasn't had for the past 10 weeks that he's been out. So that's a big plus for them to beat Patrick Mahomes, but we're going to see about that. So all right, we're not aligned this week, so
no, we're not. Somebody's going to do or die.
That's right.
Or we're going to die somehow.
All right, so listen, let's stick with the NFL real quick and let's talk about this coaching carousel. So there was a lot of movements, which we expected this week, right? Maybe one of the biggest surprises was Atlanta interviewed Bill Belichick twice and decided to go with Raheem Morris, the defensive coordinator for the Rams. So there has to be more to this. I think Bill Belichick, he's a control guy. He wants to be in charge. He wants to make the selections, and the Falcons weren't willing to give him full control. So I'm not sure what that decision was. I think we've seen Raheem Morris. He's got like a 12-30 lifetime record as a head coach, but they think that's the right decision for them. I don't think it is, and that's why they're not going to be relevant, and they're not going to be winning a Super Bowl anytime soon. So that was one of the big signings, right?
Yeah, it was a big signing. I was actually shocked about Belichick not going there. As you mentioned, there was a lot on the line in factoring. And now the options are becoming less now. You have only the Commanders and the Seahawks as big name teams that you could potentially go far with. As of now, there's no other coaching changes I can think of the top of my head, but could be happening eventually. Or the opportunity is to go to a college team, which I don't think he will, but anything's possible. I mean,
no.
But yeah.
No.
That's just throw that in there. But yeah.
But you and I were talking because you're a diehard Seahawks fan, and that position hasn't been filled. And I think we talked about it. I think Bobby Slowick is one of the guys that they are considering because he's an offensive guy, and look what he's done with the Texans and so forth. So that's still an open position. And like you said, Mike Vrabel is still out there. Does that make sense? Does Washington go with, right? Ron Rivera was a defensive coach. And do they go that same route? Do they make the change and go offense? Right. Still remains to be seen. But the coaching changes. And as we see, probably maybe the biggest one of all was, no surprise here, was Jim Harbaugh going to the Chargers.
Absolutely. Yeah, it would be a huge win for the Chargers, considering that Justin Herbert is a fantastic quarterback there. And we've seen his run. There's possibility that Jim Harbaugh could change this whole team around. And I think that is going to be crucial for the LA Chargers to have. And that opens up the AFC West in a whole new way because you have Andy Reid in the Chiefs area. You have Antonio Pierce in the Raiders. And you have Sean Payton in the Broncos spot. Plus, now you have Jim Harbaugh on the Chargers. That opens up the West even more. Now, obviously, we may not see the result we all want to by next season, but just keep in mind the AFC West now going to be a tight competition, considering that you have 4 incredible coaches there, all fighting for a championship or playoff spot come next year.
Yeah, and listen, it's no surprise because we have watched what Michigan has come. They won the national championship, so job done. But there's going to be repercussions from Michigan and their recruiting practices. So that's why Jim Harbaugh is making the jump back to the NFL. And by the way, they named Sharon Moore as the new head coach at Michigan, who stepped in for Harbaugh when he was suspended for 4 games during the season. So, a lot of things going on with these coaches. And you had mentioned before that maybe the whole Buffalo situation, maybe that requires a coaching change. I don't see that happening, but something has to be fixed there for them to get over that hump. And if it's, I don't know if it's Sean McDermott. I think he's done a good job there, put together a good team, but we'll see. So
you look at the Panthers situation. I am shocked somebody actually went there. We had Buccaneers offensive coordinator Dave Canales. He goes there as their new head coach. They also hired Dan Morgan as president of football operations for Carolina. So I'm shocked people actually decided to go there. Congrats to them, obviously, but
well, when you see something like that, you and I have talked about this, and we talked about it on the show. Like, I wouldn't work for David Tepper in Carolina.
I agree,
because he's such a jackass, and he's like a time bomb waiting to happen. But when you're an offensive coordinator, you always look for that first job, and if nothing else, if it doesn't work out, then he's had coaching experience, and that could help him down the line. So you can't blame the guy for taking the position, but he's going to have his work cut out for him working for that guy.
Yeah, the other hires that happened was or the let goes that happened. The Dolphins let go of Vic Fangio. They mutually part ways.
Fangio.
Fangio,
Yeah.
thank you. The Packers defensive coordinator will not return Joe Barry. That is some pretty big news from the Packers side. Much needed, of course, as we are told. Titans
Mhm.
hire Bengals offensive coordinator Brian Callahan as their new head coach.
Good.
And Jaguars hire Falcons defensive coordinator Ryan Nelson. And Seahawks offensive coordinator Shane Waldron is headed to the Bears as their new offensive coordinator.
Yeah. So we're seeing a lot, not just the head coaching carousel, but offensive coordinators and defensive coordinators.
So
You know,
landing
they're
jobs as
changing.
well.
Yeah, they're changing uniforms left and right. And you know, when we watched the whole Philadelphia Eagles basically collapse in the last second half of the season, which was amazing
Yeah,
because they started out 10-1, everything looked hunky dory, and you know, so they end up. It was either going to be Nick Sirianni and then redo the whole thing, which you don't want to do.
right.
I think there's chemistry between him and Jalen Hurts. But so somebody had to be this sacrificial lamb, and in this case, it was Sean Desai, who was
Absolutely.
fired, the defensive coordinator. Um, yeah, so you know, it's tough being a coach in this league because you don't
Yeah,
have a long
it's
leash.
it's not easy. You don't have a long time there, and if you make one mistake, you have judgment from every angle, no matter if it's on the field or off the field. You have a judgment from everywhere. So that is the biggest part about coaching in the NFL. You're always going to deal with some type of negativity or stress, no matter where it is or who it's from.
Right. And the whole thing about, firing a head coach means you're basically starting from scratch because you're
Correct.
going to get a new guy in who's going to bring in his coordinators, and then it upsets the chemistry. Like that's why I think they kept Sirianni, but they had to make a change, so they made it on defense. I think the offense is in good shape, but if Philadelphia doesn't win, next year or present themselves as a formidable team, then Sirianni will absolutely be fired. So you never
Absolutely.
know. Never
Absolutely.
know. Good stuff. Wow,
Yeah.
a lot of
A lot of
NFL.
topics. Yeah.
All right, so let's move to Eli's favorite sport, the NBA.
It's not my favorite.
Not mine, but we gotta bring
Not
something
my
up.
favorite, but you got to bring it up. Just because I'm wearing a shirt does not mean anything.
Right. And look what we've been watching over the past couple of weeks, right? And we've always said that there really is no defense in the NBA. And this is
Yeah.
coming to fruition right now because last night Luka Doncic dropped 73 points, the
Yeah,
fourth
what a
most
night for him.
in
And he was
NBA
just on
history.
TNT the other day. So to go from
Yeah.
TNT to go scoring 73, God bless him, because that was awesome.
And you got guys like Devin Booker, he scored 62, and Joel Embiid scored 70 points last week. And these guys are putting up incredible numbers, but there really is no defense in the NBA.
Yeah,
But
nope.
I've always said when people talk about who's the top guys in the league, right? And let's just say my top five would be guys like still Kevin Durant, not in this order. I think Giannis is still there. LeBron James is still there, hanging on. Um, but Devin Booker always goes unmentioned. He's an outstanding player, great scorer, and he should be known in the elite. He gets kind of overshadowed by
Yeah,
Kevin Durant and all that kind of stuff, but he's a heck of a player.
absolutely.
He really is.
He's one heck of a
Yeah.
player, and I think he's obviously nominated for the All Star. 100% worth it. Kevin Durant is a beast. Golden State was made the wrong decision for trading him, but he wanted to get out to begin with. So yeah.
Yeah. And of course, obviously, people who are going to comment and say you forgot Nikolai Jokic. No, I didn't forget him.
Yeah,
He's
no,
a
no,
great
no.
player. I don't know what happened to them against the Knicks the other night. They got blown out of the building by 30 some odd points, which rarely happens.
Yeah,
Um, but you got to, if you're from New York, you
you got to
have to
get used
look.
to it.
Yeah, well, what's going on with the Knicks? They're actually playing good basketball since that trade.
Yeah,
And I was a little suspect about giving up guys like R.J. Barrett, but Adenobi is turned into a great player. He
Yeah,
actually always was a good player, but this, is this the missing piece? Can they, beat, the good teams like Philadelphia and Milwaukee? That remains to be seen.
that's
And
questionable.
Milwaukee, you got to ask yourself what's going on there. I mean, they
Yeah, they
fire
just
Adrian,
fired.
yeah,
Yeah, and they pick
they
up
fired Adrian
Doc
Griffin.
Rivers from
So
ESPN.
Adrian Griffin was 30-13, which is a pretty good record, but there was
Absolutely
something
was
there that a
something
lot
there.
of people say Giannis says this caught me off guard. I didn't know. Of course, he's one of the marquee players in the game, and if he says this isn't working with him, then that's why he got. I refuse to to interpret it any other way than he decided that change needed to be made. And he brings in, like you said, Eli, he brings in Doc Rivers, who probably is 15, right?
Yeah,
Fifth or 16, maybe.
something like that. Yeah.
Um, I mean, I think there's still a formidable player to be a team to be beaten in the Eastern Conference. So we'll see about that. But there's
Yeah.
a lot going on, right?
And they said that the ESPN side of things, Doris Brooke and Mike Breen will be the same dream team. They're not adding anybody else in replacement for Doc Rivers. They should just stick with Jeff Van Gundy and Mark Jackson. But why would you stick to it, of course?
Yeah.
And I've
And
got a
with
few
Van
other notes.
Gundy, go ahead,
Sorry.
Eli.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was wondering. I was saying. I think Van Gundy is signed on with the Celtics as a special advisor or something. Is that
Something
right?
like that. Yeah. Wow. I sound
Yeah.
like that, but still, not an
Yeah.
important role was
Yeah.
what he had. Let me get some notes real quick in. NBA has suspended Tristan Thompson from the Cleveland Cavaliers for 25 games for violating anti-drug program after testing positive for it. So, yeah, he is suspended for 25 games. The NBA also has rescheduled 4 games following the whole Golden State Warriors postponement of the death over their assistant coach. Golden State Warriors Utah Jazz game that was scheduled for January 17th will now be played at February 15th at 9 p.m. Mavericks at Golden State for 19th of January is now moved to April 2nd at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. The Atlanta Hawks Dallas game will now be at April 4th at 8:30 p.m. That was originally scheduled for April 5th. And the Golden State Dallas game that was scheduled for April 2nd has now been moved to April 5th at 8:30 p.m. So that is the whole change is happening, and that is because of the whole Golden State postponement due to the assistant coach death. We totally respect it. So now every team is in, whether it's Dallas and Atlanta, is going to have some effect to it in regards to their changes of games. So something to
Yeah.
keep in mind about.
And I think what we know for sure, or we can see it happening right before our eyes, is Golden State. This dynasty that they had is starting to wither
It's no
away a little
longer a
bit.
dynasty anymore.
Yeah.
And I think because it happened with coaching changes, a few players going, and I think Steph Curry, once he reached his milestone, he's beginning to take it easy, take it a little pace
Yeah.
down, little by little, and we'll see how it goes. Not saying they're out of the playoffs yet, but there's still there's still time for Curry and the crew. That's how I got
Yeah.
to look at it. There's
And the
still
one
time.
thing I see with Golden State is I think we kind of expected more from Klay Thompson to step up and be that
Right.
leader as you're starting to see. I don't want to say Curry slowing down. The guy could shoot the lights out no matter what.
No
But
matter what, but
yeah,
you could
but
say
now,
that you could say an argument that he's not what he was a few years ago, or
right. And Klay Thompson,
and
you,
I think
you
you made a great point with that.
yeah, I think I kind of expected more from him.
Yeah, I agree with that part because what Klay Thompson has done during the championship run era, and now like him, he's also taking the pace down slowly by slowly. I don't know what's going on there, what's happening in the building, but you could see it's like I think they say, I got my rings, got my paycheck, who cares? Let's just play to have fun at this point, and that's what it seems like is the mindset now in Golden State.
Yeah, and that's exactly the mindset that guys like um, Jokic and Giannis don't have. They got their championship, but these guys they're not going to
They're not
let
done
them.
yet.
No, they're not done. They're not done at all. And
Yeah,
that's what I see as the fundamental difference. That's why I see guys like Giannis and these guys. They're still hungry, and you
absolutely.
know, listen, the prototype of a guy that from an NBA perspective is LeBron James. I mean, the guy does want to win. I don't exactly care for his politics and so forth, but he's still a formidable player. Made his, not that the All-Star team means a hell of a lot, but he
No,
did
but
break the
it
record.
it
It's his
it, it
20th.
boosts it boosts your confidence up, and you enjoy to have fun, you enjoy to hang out with the different guys having fun at the game, and it's a new and type of environment and game when you're into the all-star matches and everything.
Yeah, and so he makes his record 20th NBA All-Star game, which
Yeah,
is
pretty incredible.
that's quite notable actually.
Pretty much is, yeah.
Yeah. All right, so Eli, that's your NBA.
Not my NBA. Just winning the shirt.
All right, so listen, let's touch base real quick. I know we have a lot of loyal tennis fans out there, and again, when you see um, Djokovic gets knocked out in the quarterfinals, and that's big news because he's the last one standing when you have Nadal and Federer no longer really viable. Is this a turning of the page? I mean, the guy is a robot, but these young kids, and we've talked about it before, Medvedev and Sinner and all these young kids. Um, this could be the changing of the guard, as we put it. And
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
so he gets knocked out, and now we got Medvedev and Sinner, Yannick Sinner, in the Australian Open final. So it's going to be one of those two who's going to come out on top when we all thought for sure um, Djokovic can't be beat, but he can be beat. And on the women's side, we saw this, right? We saw, you know, what Coco Gauff has become, and she was kind of almost one of the favorites to win this. But on the women's side, who is going to take charge? Who is going to be that next Martina or Chris Everett? That remains to be seen. But it looks like this Sabalenka, is taking this upon
To the next
herself to
level.
be that person. So, and it was a kind of an upset because Coco Gauff looked like, I watched a couple of her matches. She looked almost unbeatable. But you know what? In tennis, in the women's side, you got to win 2 sets, and then the men's side, you got to win 3. And when you get 5-hour matches on the men's side, it's amazing the endurance that these guys have. So, this is the Australian Open coming up, wrapping up this weekend. And, that goes to, we have one of our loyal listeners who is our resident tennis expert, Mike Garvey. And I know he's going to be watching this tomorrow morning. And it's one of those Australian things. So you got to get up at like 4 in the morning or 5 in the morning.
Yeah. Oh, well.
I know you're not a big tennis guy, but I am. And I think
all right.
it's awesome, right?
That's good to hear. It's good around the.
All right. Eli, who's covering a lot of ground here already. So let's move on to our random points of interest, which is, of course, is sponsored weekly by Lynch Toyota of Manchester, Connecticut. And just a couple of quick points that we were talking about. Nick Dunlop, from a PGA perspective, first amateur to win a PGA Tour event in 33 years.
Yes.
And no surprise here. He comes right out, and because he didn't get a chance to win that money. So the decision was, as we've talked about time and time again, the nil money that he could get by staying in college or turning pro. He decides to turn pro. Hopefully it's the right decision for him. But that was a great story last week, watching him win that tournament. It really was. I love root for the underdogs. I root for him.
Yeah, absolutely.
And listen, while we're talking about the nil thing, again, I think we both agree that the reason Nick Saban stepped aside is because it's just absolutely impossible to build any kind of chemistry on a college football team when guys can just transfer and go. And then, so he steps down, Kalen LeBoard takes over. And what happens right out of the gate, right? Alabama loses the number one quarterback prospect, Julian Sayin, and he's going to Ohio State. Caleb Downs, who was the SEC Rookie of the Year, led them in tackles for Alabama. He's going to Ohio State. So that's what's so difficult about building this kind of championship chemistry in college football. So
yeah,
people are still moving. You can move at will. You're seeing guys that are in this league, playing college football for like 6 years now, where it was unheard of. But that's the dynamic of college football or college sports in general, and somebody's got to reel this in because it's almost out of control.
Absolutely.
A couple other quick things. Just a note, a shout out to Ryan Sandberg, who is a Hall of Fame second baseman for the Cubs for many years. He's battling a cancer illness, so I wish him all the best.
Lots of prayers. Yep.
Yeah, he was just a great player when he played. He's 64. I hope he, can still get through this. So our thoughts out to him. And Eli, the Baseball Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
We talked about it. I said right out of the gate, throw out a name, Jim Walsh from Long Island. He doesn't like us to hem and haw. Give me a name. Tell me if he's in. He's not in. Beltre, I said in first ballot. I'm okay with.
Yep.
But two other guys who got in. One I think was overdue was Todd Helton. He had great numbers and had a great career in Colorado. So he gets in. But also, and this was a surprise, and not because I didn't think the guy was good. I thought the guy was excellent. Was Joe Mauer, the catcher for the Minnesota Twins, who is, he had 1 year, he had 365. That's probably the last highest average in baseball. But, if you look at his numbers, you'd say, if guys like Todd Helton had to wait 4 years, do I think Joe Mauer is worthy of the Hall of Fame? Yes. But do I think he was a first ballot Hall of Famer? I do not. And I disagree with my brother on this one. Great numbers. He won three batting titles. Yeah. But overall, that's great. But is it Hall of Fame worthy on a first ballot? No. I'm not so sure.
No, absolutely not.
Love to hear people's thoughts on Joe Mauer and Helton getting in.
Yeah, bring a comment in or email the show at sportsmonomano@gmail.com. I'll bring up some random points real quick. The Super Bowl officiating crew has been announced. The head ref will be Bill Vinovich. He has done 2 Super Bowls already, and the whole list has been announced. So check out the NFL.com for the latest if you want to know the full list. And WWE Raw is coming to Netflix. I never saw this coming, but they have announced that in the US, Canada, UK, and Latin America, they're heading to Netflix, the movie streaming service. Not Peacock, not anything.
Do people watch this? Do people still watch WWE? Do people watch this?
Apparently they do. Apparently they do. And now they're moving to Netflix, who is obviously the biggest company for movies and streaming and all the crazy new shows. I know Stranger Things is a popular one on Netflix that people like. And interesting decision there. And Netflix is not known for sports. So this is a pretty big sports addition to Netflix that has never happened in a while. And the jerseys have been released for the Stadium Series, for the NHL Stadium Series. And they look pretty amazing, especially in the New Jersey Devils one. February 17th, of course, is Devils Flyers. And the next day is Rangers Islanders. So brave the cold if you're interested. But I am going.
Yeah.
I have to go.
All right. I still got a couple more. I wanted to
go ahead.
We were just talking about baseball, and I find it amazing the money that these guys are making. In particular, a signing this past week, Joey Gallo. And let me put this into perspective. He is a lifetime 197 hitter. I mean, you can't tell me there are guys out from college that can't hit 197, and the Nationals signed him to a 1-year, $5 million to hit under 200 in Major League Baseball. That's unbelievable to me. I can't believe it.
That's a little much, I think.
Right? Yeah, a little above and beyond. Right?
A little much, but I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
No, you're not wrong. When you say, when you hit below in what they call the Mendoza line, right? That's 200 and above. To get $5 million, boy, he's got to thank his lucky stars that somebody's willing to pay him for that, to strike out 220 times a year. Good luck, Washington.
Yeah, good luck is right.
And in hockey, Edmonton Oilers and remember, we talked about this like 5 weeks ago. They fired their head coach. They got off to a terrible start. They got maybe arguably the best players in the game in Draisaitl and Connor McDavid. So they've won 15 straight. So that coaching change really shook things up. They're back on top of 15 games, 2 games shy of the all-time consecutive win record in the NHL. That's a big deal. And
Yeah,
yes,
pretty big deal.
right. And by the way, my Rangers had pretty tough road trip out there.
I
On the
saw that
West
they did
Coast.
not have fun, nor did the Devils either. But we were in Carolina, now we're in Tampa
And
Bay.
this is what I hope doesn't happen, because this is right. We talk about the length of the season, and the Rangers started off like a house on fire, and they were unbeatable, the best record in the league, and now they're going through this slump. And then what tends to happen if you try to shake things up when you're in a slump instead of trying to work through them. So I hope the Rangers don't have to take that
To deal with that?
mentality about saying we got to make
Yeah.
a big blockbuster trade, or we should have re-signed Patrick Kane. Hockey
Yeah.
is a long season, and
Yeah, and we're at the All-Star break midway, beginning this weekend.
yeah,
It's in
I mean,
Toronto.
at least your Devils have been kind of consistent. I mean, all year round.
Yeah.
Yeah, they win some, they lose some, but
Debatable.
they don't
Yeah.
go on these terrible things.
Not true.
So that's one thing, and I got one other one. So talked about golf before. So the Pebble Beach tournament in the PGA, which always something that I always consider one of the start of the PGA season. It's always awesome, and it's one of the most scenic places on the planet to play golf. So that's up next. The PGA Tours in Torrey Pines, California this week, which I have played that golf course, by the way. I wasn't going to win any championships with it, but
Unfortunately not. But yeah, you did it.
But we're going to see, the start of the PGA Tour is going to have a lot of things, because over the past year we've lost the Live Golf, and I don't know where this merger has gone. I don't know what's going on with it, but the start of the PGA Tour, and we're only a couple months away from the Masters.
Yeah, pretty incredible.
Okay, Eli, those are our random points. You got any others?
Nope, that's all I had. I mentioned
all right.
it. Yeah, I'm good.
So, as Eli puts up on our banner, we have been having some fun with our movie recommendation segment. And like I said, Eli and I are from different generations. We're aligned with sports, but when it comes to movies, Eli still hasn't seen Rudy. I got to bring that up because our sponsor is demanding that he sees it.
Okay.
So this week, we're gonna stick with the comedy theme, and we got an email from one of our loyal listeners, John DePrecker, who sent us an email. He says, "Jim, I thought for sure you would have had this in your, movie recommendations from a comedy perspective weeks ago, and he's right, and it just completely slipped my mind. But Young Frankenstein is my movie pick of the week." Eli, I don't know if you've seen it, but it goes way back in the 1974, I think it came out, but it's timeless. Gene Wilder. It was just a great movie, and like I said, if I'm missing something, please let me know. But I'd love people to.
I'll have one next week. Yeah, I don't have one on my head yet, but yeah, good pick.
All right. So pick of the week is Young Frankenstein. If you haven't seen it, watch it. It's great. It's great.
Yep.
And so the reason that we're doing the show a little bit earlier today is because I'm going to see my grandson play basketball for the first time.
Yes.
And we've had some clips on the show. The guy hit some clutch free throws, but it's just something that I haven't had an opportunity to see him play basketball. But today I will, and that's why the time changed for this week, so I can get out to Randolph, New Jersey for the game at 11:15, and wishing him all the best. It's just something that a grandfather just can't get enough of,
Absolutely.
So Eli, we got a couple of notable passings. Now you have a couple that you mentioned I missed, so tell us about the
we're gonna go to Phil You had it
Bissell.
earlier. Bissell, thank you. Phil Bissell, there you go. He is the original creator of the Pat Patriots logo. He was born in 1926, died, of course, this week. He was 98 years old. Long life career. And famed Broncos and Buffaloes announcer Larry Zimmer died at 88. He did 18 seasons as color commentary and 7 seasons doing play-by-play. He had a fantastic run. And thoughts and prayers to those two. That's who I had. Jim, who did you have for this week?
All right. Well, I didn't see any besides those two that you mentioned from the world of sports, which is a good thing.
It's a very good thing.
So we got a couple from the world of, let's say, entertainment or otherwise.
Yeah.
Charles Osgood, who was 91 years old, and Charles Osgood took over CBS Sunday Morning, which I think is one of the best shows on television. On Sunday mornings from 9 to 10:30. He was the successor to Charles Kuralt, and Charles Osgood was just, not only a journalist, but he was a musician, he was a poet, he was just a well-rounded, well-respected man at 91 years old. So shout out to him, and our thoughts and prayers are with his family.
Absolutely.
And here's a name. A lot of people won't get the name of this person, but they will certainly know the character, and that's Peter Crombie, who was 71 years old. And Peter played the recurring role of Crazy Joe Davola on the Seinfeld. That's why I asked you if you watch Seinfeld, Eli.
All right. Well, that's why. And my questions have been answered now.
Yeah, okay. But everybody who watches Seinfeld certainly knows who Crazy Joe Davola was. It was a great character. And one other one, and this is from a movie back in the early 70s. It was called Deliverance with Burt Reynolds and Ronnie Cox and so forth. Kind of a disturbing movie at times, but this Herbert, let me make sure I got that right. Yeah. Herbert Coward. He played, there's kind of a disturbing scene in the woods. He was a mountain guy. He was the toothless guy, and he ends up dying. I'm surprised that he was still alive. He's 85. Yeah. Died in a car crash last week. But if you've seen the movie, you would know the character he played, and he passed away too. So again, we don't close the show with notable passings. To go out on a sad note, we go to recognize people that have made an impact either in sports, music, entertainment, news, whatever it was.
So on and so forth. Exactly.
Yeah. All right, Eli, listen.
Fantastic week. Fantastic show.
Yep.
We're in championship weekend.
And the important thing is that folks send us their comments. Eli's going to expand this, and he's going to come up with a QR code so you can scan the code and go right to the show and all these kind of things. So we're doing a lot more, and we'd love to hear the comments or suggestions from our audience because,
absolutely,
as you know, our loyal listeners mean everything to us. So send us an email at sportswithmono@gmail.com and join us on the show next week at 10.
Yes,
right, Eli? We're back at our normal
10 a.m.
time.
If there's any changes, we'll bring it to you.
Okay. And that's what Eli's been bringing to the show, that, if there are changes, we notify our subscribers, we notify our listeners, and but we'll be back at 10 o'clock next week. So Eli, good luck on your 2 picks.
Thank you. Good luck as well. And enjoy championship weekend.
You bet. And like I said, folks, thanks for joining us. You mean the world to us, and your thoughts and comments and mean everything to us. And we love bringing your names up on the show. So enjoy the games yourself. It's Championship Sunday, and we'll be back with you guys next week, Saturday at 10 a.m. Eli,
right, have a good one, everyone.
Have yourself a great week. Good job. Thank you.
You too. Thank you, everyone. Have a good one.
Okay, guys.